Welcome back. Fentanyl overdoses now the #1 cause of death in the United States, killing a record 100,000 Americans last year. And this year, that record will be broken again, despite the fact that 90% of all fentanyl in the United States enters this country across the southern border. We're now going to welcome in former Drug Enforcement Administration Special Agent Derek Maltz back with us this morning. Derek, good to have you back on. So Kamala Harris, the vice president, said over the weekend that the border is secure. That's a quote. We know that's not true, but how big a problem is messaging like that? Because there are people out there that hear that from the vice president and believe her, take her at her word.
Well, good morning, Rob. Thank you. Well, it's not just the vice president. It's our Homeland Security Secretary who's said repeatedly that he has operational control of the border. We have an invasion of into the country, and we have millions and millions and millions of deadly dosage units of poisonous fentanyl killing American kids at record levels. This is something, Rob, that we've never seen in the history of the country. I mean, I'm working with the families every day. We have a rally tomorrow in Washington, D.C. to bring all these families together in a grassroots effort because they can't rely on the government. We need an Operation Warp Speed like we had for COVID to deal with this historic level of death and destruction of our families.
Well, if you look at the railroad strike that we have talked about all week long, the strike has been averted. Joe Biden stepped in and made sure both sides got together and negotiated. If he wanted to solve this problem at the southern border, he could do it. The president and vice president have no interest in addressing this problem. And what's happening right now, and many generals are saying this across the country, that what China is doing is they are using fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction here in the United States. 300 Americans overdose every single day because of fentanyl that is made in China that's brought in across the southern border. Why isn't that being addressed?
That's a great question. I mean, President Biden also threatened Russia. If they use chemical weapons against Ukraine, it'd be deadly consequences. But what's the consequences on the cartels using a deadly weapon? And our attorney general is threatening parents, calling them domestic terrorists because they care about kids in school, but he's not going after the terrorists that are in Mexico killing our kids. If Al-Qaeda or ISIS was developing a chemical weapon or a biological weapon in Mexico, you think the government would just sit back and let it happen? We'd have to go after this like we've never done in the history of the country because we've never seen this, Rob.
Yeah.
It's really sad.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. 8,000 migrants cross the border every day. 300 Americans die every day from overdoses. I know, and you just mentioned this, tomorrow, the annual national rally to stop fentanyl poisonings in Washington. Tell us about this event and why this has become so important.
April Babcock, the founder of Lost Voices of Fentanyl, had a rally last year outside the Chinese embassy trying to bring awareness. No one in America knows about it because there's nobody in the government talking about it. So the families have to do it. So it was a pretty productive rally last year. There were families from 40 states. Tomorrow we're going back to Washington, D.C. It starts at 10 o'clock. There'll then be a March of Unity over to the White House. Hopefully, people will realize, maybe the media will show up and start telling the country what's going on. The kids are under attack. There's a deceptive and devious marketing campaign right now targeting our kids. Look at the rainbow-colored fentanyl that they're pushing out.
Looks like
little
candy.
Chalk pieces.
Yeah.
They have little blocks, Rob, that look like chalk. They're putting it in pills. They're putting it in powder. They're making it look like Skittles and Sweet Tarts so the kids will use it.
It really is unbelievable. Just quickly, Derek, how many people are you expecting tomorrow?
Well, it's hard to say because they're traveling from all around the country, but there'll be hundreds, if not thousands, of families from around the country, trying to get some awareness. That's really the key.
Yeah.
No public service announcements from the government. What are they doing?
All right. Derek Maltz, appreciate it. Appreciate the work you're doing, too. It is just unbelievable. This crisis is getting worse and worse, and nothing from the White House to address this. Innocent people dying every single day. 300 more, at least, will die today. Derek Maltz, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Rob.
All right, we've got a lot more coming up this morning.